Hey guys, I'm Steph and welcome back to my beauty stash. Today I am sharing with you the top 10 worst eyeshadow palettes that I currently have in my stash. Who knows why I still have these, to be honest. Some of them are kind of new, some of them are a little bit on the older side, some of them fall right in between. There's all different price ranges in here. I have some high-end palettes and then I have some drugstore palettes and everything in between. I just want to say that if some of these are your favorite palettes, then I'm happy that they are working for you. They did not work for me for whatever reason. Maybe I didn't like the color story. Maybe I didn't like the formula. Maybe I didn't like the way they held up or performed. Whatever reason, guys, these are the bottom of the bottom in my stash. And I am going to be doing a follow-up video to this one, and I'm going to be sharing with you the best of the best, the top 10 eyeshadow palettes that I currently have in my stash. That video will go up about a day or two after you see this one, so definitely be on the lookout for that. I know some of you have asked me to do more like ranking videos or showing my collection type of videos, and I most definitely want to do that for you guys. So I hope you enjoy the video. Again, no offense if these are your favorite palettes. These palettes simply just did not do it for me. And if you're wondering about the eye look, I did film it. I'm gonna be adding it as an Instagram reel and as a YouTube short, and it'll be up sometime this week, so be on the lookout for it. I did use the Pizza Kitty Duochrome eyeshadow palette from Sugar Drizzle. I've already done a 2-look tutorial and review over this palette, so I'll have it linked up above in case you wanna check it out. But this is like the cutest palette that I own. I mean, cats, pizza, burgers, fries, you get the picture. So if you guys want to see the worst eyeshadow palettes that I currently have in my stash, keep on watching. Now guys, I don't think I'm gonna bother to link any of these eyeshadow palettes just because, you know, I'm not recommending them, so I only want to link things that I actually recommend. So I will link the makeup look that I have on, whatever products I can, in the description box in case you want to check out those products, because what I'm wearing currently works great for me. All right, these are going to be in no particular order, okay? The majority of these eyeshadow palettes I purchased myself, or I received them in a BoxyCharm. Maybe one or two I received in PR, but for the most part, these are things that I bought with my own money. Let's start first with Jouer, and this is the Tan Lines eyeshadow palette. I think I used this palette maybe twice at the most. These shimmer shades, these are like cream to powder shades, and they're like all dried up now. These are terrible. They were awful. They were bad then, they're worse now. They just didn't do anything for me. I had a really hard time working with them. The matte shades were okay. The matte shades were actually the best part about this palette. But this is a pretty light palette. I wasn't very impressed like with the yellow over here, and like this little area, this trio right here, that was like the main selling point for me, and it was a bit of a letdown. The rest of the shades are pretty neutral shades that you probably already have in your stash, and this was like a $40 eyeshadow palette. It was between $40 and $50 if I'm not mistaken. This was my very first experience with Jouer. I have not bought anything from them since. There are things that kind of catch my eye, I just haven't taken the plunge, but this Tan Lines palette, I think I'm going to be decluttering it. Next is an eyeshadow palette that I had really high expectations for. I was so excited when I saw it in my BoxyCharm, and it is from Storybook Cosmetics. This is the Fairy Tales Storybook Cosmetics eyeshadow palette. Now, the thing with Storybook Cosmetics is all of their palettes, they look like a book, and they display very nicely on the shelves. But this palette, for some reason, I just never got a good blend with it. The shimmer shades were just okay. And I guess maybe it's the color story that really, you know, wasn't all that appealing to me. I didn't get to pick this as part of my BoxyCharm box for that month. I want to say this was like a December box, maybe about 2 years ago. It's been a while since I don't subscribe to BoxyCharm, but this palette just didn't do it for me. I do have the Mean Girls and Storybook Cosmetics eyeshadow palette. That is a beautiful palette. I have enjoyed using that one so much, but this particular palette just left something to be desired. I'm gonna keep it because I love to display it. Next is an eyeshadow palette you guys have definitely heard me say I do not like, and for whatever reason I am still hanging on to this palette, maybe praying that it will miraculously start performing better, but probably not, and it is the Stupid Love palette from Haus Labs. In case you are unfamiliar with Haus Labs, this is Lady Gaga's brand. This is what the palette looks like. Guys, I think I paid close to $50 for this eyeshadow palette, which is probably why I have not gotten rid of it, but I think I'm going to be decluttering it before the year is over. Guys, I was just so excited to try this palette. I had such high expectations for it, and I thought, you know what? This is a palette that better relates to Lady Gaga. You know that she is a very unique, colorful, I mean, just totally awesome person, singer, entertainer. I love to see her fashion choices, even though some of them are way out there and I personally wouldn't wear some of them, but I like that she wears them. I like that she knows how to pull them off. She doesn't care what anybody thinks, and I wanted to see all that. I still want to see all of that from her brand. I thought this palette was kind of inching us closer to that uniqueness, that creativity that Lady Gaga has, but unfortunately the formula just did not do it for me. The shimmer shades didn't perform well. The mattes were just okay. I just was expecting something totally different from the palette. I do like the shades, but it was just the performance and the quality of the palette that is just a no-go for me. I think I'm going to try creating one last look. We'll see if it can redeem itself, but for the most part, guys, this is going on the chopping block this year. Next is an eyeshadow palette. Some of you are going to be, oh my God, Steph, how can you put this in there? And it is from Pat McGrath. This is my very first Pat McGrath eyeshadow palette purchase. This is the Mothership Subversive La Vie en Rose eyeshadow palette. I love the packaging. The packaging is stunning, beautiful. I mean, Pat McGrath does amazing eyeshadow palettes as far as packaging goes. You do have a mirror on this side and it folds open like that. These are the shades. I like the shades. Don't get me wrong. Like, they're nice shades, but they don't perform the way I was expecting a, what, $60 eyeshadow palette to perform. I thought these shades were gonna be something completely spectacular, and they're just not. And for like $60 or whatever it was that I paid for it, I think I got it during a Sephora sale, so I don't think I paid full price. But for what it retails for, I mean, I expect something much better, especially because I have better at way less. So I know Pat McGrath, I know her formulas vary, I think, from palette to palette. And I want to say that the more affordable palettes don't necessarily have that amazing formula that the higher price palettes have. And that's a shame, because when I look at Natasha Denona and I look at her mini palettes and then I compare them to like the medium and the large size palettes that are obviously more expensive, the formula is the same across the board, and that's what I wish Pat McGrath would do. At least that has been my experience with the brand. I do not own any of the $129 eyeshadow palettes. I haven't taken that step yet. She just released a new, what was it, the Utopian eyeshadow palette. It's a pretty color story, but I feel like we've seen that from her before. So I am just kind of waiting for that unique color story to come out in one of her larger palettes before I decide to purchase. I do want to purchase one day soon, but I am holding out for that special palette. Unfortunately, this one just, you know, I have better, and especially for the price, I would not recommend picking this one up. I would actually probably not recommend picking any of these size palettes up. I had another one, it was released last year, and it fell short big time. I actually ended up returning it. So yeah, guys, this one for me just kind of missed the mark. I am gonna keep it. It's gonna hang around. I just love the packaging. It's really nice to display. But as far as me reaching for it, I haven't reached for it in a long time. Next is an eyeshadow palette that I did receive in a BoxyCharm, and that is from Fenty Beauty. This is the very first eyeshadow palette that Fenty Beauty released. This is called the Moroccan Spice eyeshadow palette. For me, these shadows are really powdery. You know, I don't know. I'm kind of at a loss for words with it. Like, these shades right here are really pretty, but then these are just so neutral. It's like we have this color scheme so many times over in our eyeshadow palettes. Even when it was released, we already had these shades in other palettes. I think the packaging is stunning. The packaging is really pretty. I don't mind the scattered, like, diamond-shaped eyeshadow palettes in here, but the packaging is definitely the high point of the palette. It's a very powdery formula, and to be honest, guys, I haven't wanted to purchase any Fenty Beauty eyeshadows since trying this palette in my BoxyCharm, just because I wasn't impressed with the quality. Next is an eyeshadow palette that I've had in my stash for quite some time, and that is from Tarte. This is the Tarte Pro eyeshadow palette. This is what it looks like. I've had this for a long time, guys. I've had it for, gosh, it could be 4 years now. I haven't used it in so long. I am definitely going to be decluttering it. But even when I would use it, the shades are just okay. I love that it smells like chocolate. It smells like that cocoa powder that Tarte and Too Faced kind of adds to their shadows. That is the best part, I think, about the palette. The shimmer shades are really nothing special. The matte shades tend to be a little bit powdery. I do like the shades that are in here, but honestly, I think some of them are just too similar to one another. I would have liked to see more variance with the shades. And don't get me wrong, guys, I do like Tarte eyeshadows, although I haven't bought any recently just because their palettes tend to be more on the neutral side, and you guys know I love colorful makeup. But this one has reached the end of its life in my stash, and I will be decluttering it. Next is from Makeup Revolution. Guys, I tend to not buy Makeup Revolution eyeshadows anymore. This could be the last palette that I purchased, and this was like maybe 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. This is, what is this palette? This is the Integrity Wild Animal palette. Pretty shades, you know, I love color, so this is why I bought it. But this palette, no. The shadows don't perform that well. They are powdery. I just don't like the pigmentation of it. The shimmers were just okay. Like, I love the color story of this palette. This is exactly the color story that attracts me. This is the color story, you know, that I welcome to my stash. But the performance of the palette is a no-go for me. And just overall, for me, Makeup Revolution eyeshadow palettes, they just, I've stopped buying them. All of their brands, to be honest. Like, I think they just overdo it, you know? And I know ColourPop overdoes it as well, but I think Makeup Revolution, because they keep churning out different makeup brands under their umbrella, it's just overkill for me. I like Makeup Revolution complexion products way more than I like their eyeshadow palettes. So guys, if you wonder why you never see me review like Makeup Revolution eyeshadow palettes or just Makeup Revolution in general, it's because I'm not really attracted to the brand. There's only a couple things here and there that I really do enjoy, one of them being a concealer, but for the most part, I stay clear of the brand, and I definitely stay clear of their eyeshadow palettes. Next up is a palette that, totally missed the mark for me. Beautiful color story though. I love the color story of this palette. That is why I bought it, and because I love Milani. This is the Milani Gilded Jewel eyeshadow palette, and no, these shadows are just no. The shimmers are awful. The mattes are just okay. Guys, usually these gilded palettes, from what I've tried, tend to not be that great. The only gilded palette that I have from Milani that is like, wow, like really good is that Getaway palette, and I'll put a picture of it here. It's the one that looks like the little VW bus. That is a good palette. These are not good palettes. I have several others in this gilded line that came before this palette, and they are the same quality, just powdery, nothing to the shimmer. Guys, don't waste your money on these gilded palettes. They are not that great. Next is an eyeshadow palette that I did receive in PR from one of my favorite drugstore brands, and that is Catrice. This one is the Precious Copper eyeshadow palette. No, this is not a great palette. This, and ooh, and look, one of the shadows already popped out. Let me take that out. It's a shimmer. This is pretty much an all shimmer eyeshadow palette. These are not my shades. These are way too neutral, way too similar to one another. I don't know why there's not like a matte shade in here. This was just, no, this was a big no, a hard pass for me. And guys, that's what I've noticed about Catrice eyeshadow palettes. They are not the best performing palettes. For me, Catrice is all about complexion. Catrice makes amazing foundations, concealer, powder, mascara, blush, lipstick, everything fabulous except the eyeshadow palettes, kind of like Milani. They're along the same lines because I love Milani complexion products. I love Catrice complexion products, but when it comes to their eyeshadow formula, that's where I draw the line, and I'd rather just pick up like a Wet n Wild palette or even an e.l.f. palette at the drugstore. And last but not least is another high-end luxury brand, and that's Charlotte Tilbury. This is the Exaggereyes eyeshadow palette. I believe this is a palette that she created for the Victoria's Secret runway show, and no, this just did not do it for me. For $50, I cannot believe I paid $50. I paid full price for this eyeshadow palette for 4 shades that, no. My Wet n Wild, my e.l.f., my BH, my ColourPop, those palettes that cost 20 bucks and have 15 or 20 different shades perform a million times better than this palette performed. I want my 50 bucks back. I want my 50 bucks back. It was my very first Charlotte Tilbury eyeshadow palette purchase. I have one other Charlotte Tilbury eyeshadow palette. It is the all matte palette that came out last year. I do like that one way more than I liked this one. This palette was just not worth it. Not worth it at all. It makes me upset just looking at it because I expected so much more from it. The shimmer shades were just boring. Like, they did not sparkle, they did not shimmer. The matte shade was fine, it was easy to blend, but that's about it. Like, I am very sorry I spent money on this. And to be honest, guys, I think this palette keeps me from buying more of her eyeshadow palettes. Also because they just all look the same to me. They don't really catch my eye. This is another brand that I enjoy the complexion products way more than I do the eyeshadow products. And that's okay. Like, we all have our favorites from each brand, and unfortunately, eyeshadows are not something that I enjoy from the CT line. All right, guys, so that wraps up today's video showcasing the worst palettes, the top 10 worst palettes that I currently have in my stash. Let me know some of the eyeshadow palettes that you currently have that you're just like, no, I wish I didn't have these, or they have to go. I would love to hear what is not working out for you. And again, if some of these palettes are your favorite palettes, I am so happy. I am so happy that they're working for you. They just missed the mark for me. I want to thank you guys so much for watching another one of my videos. You all have a great day or night wherever it is you all are at. Stay hydrated, guys. Drink that water, and I will see you all very soon. Bye.